and welcome back. Today's is the second half of my 14 Discoveries in New Brunswick series. Last week I told you about some of the things I discovered in New Brunswick, and you can certainly read that on my blog. Now you're getting the second half of that vacation report, beginning with number 8 on the list of 14. The tiniest house. On a back street in St. Andrew, I was intrigued by the perfect playhouse. No signage, no fanfare, just a perfect little replica of a full-size house sitting in someone's yard. I was marveling at it from the road, resisting the urge to trespass, when a couple walked past. I asked her about the subject of my marvel, fully expecting her to be a tourist. Nearly everyone was. But no, she was a local and remembered playing in this house when she was a kid 6 decades ago. So cool. Number 9 on my list is By the River B&B. The vacation part of my trip ended in Fredericton, the location of the work part of the trip. That work will be the subject of another blog. Fredericton has many, many lovely things, not least of which are the stately homes dotting the streets. Jack and I stayed in one of these a decade ago, on one of those just passing through NB to get to PEI trips that I referred to in part 1 of this series. I decided to pick another of the stately homes for my last pre-conference hotel night. By the River B&B is a real B&B. That's right. There's a person greeting you, they live in the house, you get breakfast in the morning, and there are no usurious fees profiting an American company. You're right, I'm not a huge fan of Airbnb. By the River is an historic home built in 1903 and currently run as a B&B by a family who immigrated from China 3 years ago. It has 9 guest rooms of various sizes. I took the Mary Tibbetts room in the attic. I loved the view of the yard from the triptych window with rounded tops. But mostly I loved learning that Mary Tibbetts was the first female grad from the University of New Brunswick in 1886. I don't know what connection Tibbetts had to this house, if any, but I felt her positive feminist vibes. On the downside, I did have to walk down a hall to get to the toilet, but whatever. Number 10, the legislature. I don't know why I was surprised at how lovely Fredericton is. After all, it's the provincial capital, and that often results in a city receiving architectural and botanical attention it wouldn't otherwise. Fredericton's no exception. I happened upon the legislature building just as a tour was starting, so I tagged along. The tour included a few minutes in question period. The legislative chamber is so much more historic and frankly prettier than Queen's Park in Ontario. The tone of the debate was similar, though. Even what I listened to was mostly en français and therefore impenetrable to me. For those who don't know, New Brunswick is Canada's only officially bilingual province. Number 11 on my list is the Beaverbrook Gallery. Across the street and backing onto the St. John River from the legislature is the Beaverbrook Art Gallery. The gallery dates back to 1959 when Lord Beaverbrook donated 300 works of art. That was the starter kit, if you like. Now the collection is 7,000 strong. I was delighted to find a number of pieces new to me from my favorite member of Canada's Group of 7, Lauren Harris. But imagine my complete shock to round a corner and find myself in front of a massive Salvador Dali piece. Because it's Dali, it's likely redundant to say it left me bewildered. Or in more modern parlance, WTAF. Number 12 on my list, Covered Bridge Chips. I snuck out of the conference a little early a few days later and began my return 2-day drive to Ontario. 90 minutes out of Fredericton, I pulled off at Hartford to worship at the altar of the Covered Bridge Chip Store. Yes, I am a chipaholic, and Covered Bridge makes a set of mighty fine kettle-cooked flavors. I was anxious to get a little stash for the trip home and hopefully beyond. The lobster flavor is excellent, as are the curry-flavored chickpea chips. Well, I'm not going to lie. everything they make is top shelf. I'm not going to tell you how many bags I bought. I can say, however, they are all gone. Number 13, street art. On my return trip, I had time to contemplate all the good things I saw, including the great public art. Of particular note, the multicolored inflated tubes on the harbor in St. John. I wish I had explored their origin when I was there, since I now can't find them on the internet, but the image of the sun setting behind them will stick with me. Similarly, the series of murals on concrete near the reversing falls in St. John is in my head. More than the falls, if I'm honest, although that's mostly because my knee wasn't up for the descent to the viewing platform, a reminder of how tricky mobility challenges are for so many, and how privileged I am that mostly I've had a life free from this. Welcome to my 60s and beyond, I guess. The murals, though, were beautiful and a bright spot on a drizzly day in St. John. Finally, number 14, the people. Whether it was the woman on the desk in the St. John's Art Center, the Sunday morning writers, people I quizzed on the street around the housing crisis, the docent in the gallery, or wait staff from Australia, Ireland, BC, and Ontario, everyone I spoke to answered my sometimes probing questions thoughtfully and freely. As much as anything else I've mentioned, they made the trip. Never once in the 11 days I was away did I lament being alone. When the new and interesting things to see and do failed me as companions, CBC Radio and the CDs I brought along, including a magnificent 2016 Jane Siberry release I only recently acquired, filled the gap. I know it's not for everyone, but if you think solo travel would suit you, try it. It's great. Stay tuned, because next week I'll tell you about the Co-op Housing Federation of Canada's annual conference and AGM in Fredericton. Thanks so much for watching.